Hey, you're listening to the Riverdale podcast. This is episode number 90. My name is Jonathan. Welcome to lovely Riverdale, USA. This is a weekly Archie Comics fan podcast. Every week we update every Saturday morning, and every week we break things down into 4 categories. The first category is the book of the week. That's the comic book I read this week. Sometimes it's a new comic book, sometimes it's an old comic book, but it's always an Archie comic book. We move then to the news of the week. That's what happened in the world of Archie in the week since our last podcast. Then on to new releases. That's what came out this past Wednesday. Will be coming up this coming Wednesday from Archie. We're going to wrap up today with a listener email. And as I talked about last week, we're going to break format a little bit this week. We are going to talk about this week's book of the week right off the top, and then we're going to go into the other 3 releases this week from Archie Comics. They are giant. It's a big week for Archie Comics, and we'll get into that. But it's going to be a big show, fun show. Stick around. Let's get into the book of the week. All right, this week, as I said at the top of the show, we are switching things up a little bit. Just a couple weeks back, and I talked about this on last week's show, I got a little bit of a suggestion and a little bit of a challenge from forum user Betty Reggie over on archiefans.com. She said, you should review all of the books that come out on the 20th. Looks like a big week. You should review every single one. And maybe she meant that in jest. Maybe not. But that's what we're doing this week. We're going to go through... first of all, our pick of the week is Jughead Double Digest, number 197. We're also going to cover Afterlife with Archie, number 2, Mega Man, number 31, and Archie and Friends Double Digest, number 33. And in doing each of these, we are going to be using a timer, a trusty egg timer here. And we're going to set it for 5 minutes. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to see what we can get to in the next 5 minutes talking about Jughead number 197. We are set at 5 minutes. Here we go. First of all, we start with a great Rex Lindsay cover. No, it's not even. Now that I look at it, it's a Bill Galvin cover. Awesome. This was intended to be the cover of the final issue of Jughead that was going to come out last year. It's a great image, Christmassy image of Jughead as Santa's elf, and Santa saying, Jughead, you're supposed to be helping, not eating, and Jughead is, of course, eating all of the cookies and milk left for Santa. It's a great cover, and I was so excited to read that issue when it came out last year. Of course, we didn't get it. The Jughead book was ended prematurely with issues still solicited. But here it is on Double Digest number 197. To get into the guts of the book, we start with the first story, The Holiday Season. This is Jughead and Archie trying to earn some money around the holidays, and they attempt to shovel snow. They attempt to sell Christmas trees, and none of these plans work. And eventually, at the end of the story concludes with both of them being offered a job at the movie theater because Jughead knows all about the refreshments. The manager of the movie theater sees him and tracks him down and says, you know so much about the refreshments at the movie theater that I'm giving both you and your friend Archie a job. So how cool is that? Where are we now? I got a bunch of notes written down. We're going to skip ahead to this story called Here Comes Santa Claus. This is Jughead in Here Comes Santa Claus. This is a really simple premise. There's a few stories in here that are like this, that they just set you up in the first page and they just sort of wind things up and just let them go. In this story, we have Archie borrowing Hot Dog and dressing him up like a reindeer. Archie gets in the sled with Hot Dog pulling it. And, of course, nothing good happens from there, except for the terrific wisecracks we get from Jughead. Archie gets dragged right into the lodge mansion and ruins just about everything. Let me get you some credits on that one. This is written and penciled by Dick Malgrim, inks by John D'Agostino, with Bill Yoshida and Barry Grossman, as always. And there's an amazing, big, like, 2/3 of the page panel of Hot Dog dragging Archie right into the lodge's Christmas tree. It's a big crunch sound effect as he smashes everything. And he's actually flying in the sled over Mr. Lodge, who is hunched down, trying not to get run over. That's a great story. We're going to jump ahead now to Archie in the Christmas mix-up, in which Archie inadvertently gives the presents that he bought for each of his friends to the wrong friends, and being the polite folks that they are, they all meet up with him at Pop's, attempting to wear or enjoy the presents as he had hoped they would. And it's just a fun mix-up story that is drawn, and I believe written as well. Yeah, written and drawn by Fernando Ruiz with Al Nickerson inks. Now, we'll jump ahead as we are running out of time rapidly. We get Jughead's Time Police. We get a full issue of Jughead's Time Police with wonderful Gene Colan art, script by Rich Margopoulos. And this is largely, I guess, it stars Hot Dog, and then he's mostly the plot device. Hot Dog gets Jughead's beanie and runs through history, and Jughead and January have to go after him. And as I'm rapidly out of time, you're also going to want to check out Mullet over Mullet. It's a Craig Boldman, Rex Lindsay story in which Jughead has a mullet, and there's a brilliant scene of all the horrible mishaps that happened to Jughead as a result of having his hair long in the back. Fantastic stuff. So that's our book of the week, Jughead Double Digest number 197. All right, we are now going to jump into Afterlife with Archie number 2. I am winding the clock again and setting it for 5 minutes. Now, if you haven't read Afterlife with Archie number 2, I am going to get spoilery with this review, so you can jump ahead 5 minutes onto the next review, and you won't get spoiled. You can come back and listen to it after you've read the issue. But Afterlife with Archie, of course, it's the second issue. The first one was a blockbuster, written by Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, drawn by Francesco Francavilla, with lettering by Jack Morelli. And here we go, guys. This is a book that I just wasn't thrilled with the first issue. It's a book that is marketed as a mature title, an adult title, but just doesn't feel mature to me. It seems to me to be taking a lot of the cheap, sort of simple routes. Now, having said that, one of the things I'm trying to avoid in discussing this book and try to really think about and own when I'm reading the book is that, Archie as a character, the Riverdale kids as characters are, they aren't so holy that they can't be taken apart and put back together. They aren't so precious to me that they can't be put in a story like this. I don't have a problem with this book existing. I don't have a problem with them taking this sort of angle with it. But what I have to think as I'm reading it is that maybe this book just isn't written with me in mind. They obviously sold out the first issue. They had huge numbers. The second issue was doing crazy too. That actually sold out as well. This issue has sold out. So maybe it's written for folks who don't read the regular Archie books. Maybe there's some overlap there. I know there are some Archie fans who are really enjoying this, but maybe it isn't written for me. And that's totally fine. If this book makes a pile of money, it could very well, buoy the company or buoy the sales of another book that I'm reading that maybe isn't bringing in as many readers or as many dollars or whatever. But getting into the story itself and not just my weird feelings about it, we open the book with Jason and Cheryl Blossom. And this is a weird exchange in which Jason is jealous that Cheryl is going after Archie, and there's a weird, like, hand-holdy kind of moment between them as brother and sister that's really unsettling, and I have to think it's intentionally put in there. There's a weird sort of body languagey moment between them. It's just weird, and I think it's I don't know, unsettling. I'm sure that was the intention, but they set up a narrative within this where Veronica is telling the story to her father throughout, and it seems like throughout the issue they are building up towards something. But what they ultimately show you at the end of the issue isn't necessarily... It wasn't a shock. It wasn't a thrill. They didn't leave you with that big cliffhanger like they did with the first issue with Jughead coming in to the dance. They leave you, spoiler alert, at the end of the issue with the whole Riverdale gang packed into the Lodge Mansion. Now, if you're me, I think if you're anyone in Riverdale, the Lodge Mansion is a great place to fortify yourself in Riverdale. I don't think it's a big surprise that they're there. But getting back to earlier in the book, we go through, and Jughead eats Ethel, basically takes a big bite out of her in front of everyone. That's not ultimately very interesting to me. I hate to be such a downer. What is interesting is we head over to the chocolate shop for a little interlude in which we have Nancy and Ginger, and they are having some sort of relationship, which is cool. It seems out of character for the two folks, but if we're switching other things up, why not switch this up? And who's to say this isn't something that's going on within the regular Archie universe? But that was interesting enough. We then have Mr. Jones, Jughead's dad, come into the chocolate shop. So I guess we'll wait and see what happens with that next issue. But we do get a cool heroic moment with Archie subduing Jughead and leading the kids out of the school and away from the dance and through the woods. And of course, we find them eventually on that last page at the Lodge Mansion. And ultimately, I just don't know if I'm thrilled with this book. I don't know if it's an exciting thing for me. And I don't know if you guys as the listener want me to continue reviewing it if I don't always have the best things to say about it. But there it is, Afterlife with Archie, number 2. We're left in Lodge Mansion with Archie, Betty, Veronica, Moose, Midge, Dilton, Chuck, Reggie, and Kevin holding up inside of Lodge Mansion. Now, that could be an interesting story. I mean, I am along for the ride. I'm going to be there for issue 3. I'm just not 100% down with all the choices that are being made there. We do get a cool afterword, and I know I'm breaking my 5-minute rule, but it's also my 5-minute rule. We get a cool story from the vault. This is a story drawn by Gray Morrow, who wrote most of that issue of Madhouse that I reviewed a few weeks ago. And we'll talk about that later in the show. This is an issue from a story from an issue of Chilling Adventure Stories. And Chilling Adventures in Sorcery. And it's a good-looking story. It's presented not in color. I have to think that it was originally in black and white. But that's rad. Definitely more value for your $2.99. And that is it. That is Afterlife with Archie, number 2. Let's jump on to Mega Man, number 31. Setting the clock once more for 5 minutes. when I went to read Mega Man number 31, I realized that I'd completely missed Mega Man number 30. But the great thing about these Archie Adventure books, Mega Man and Sonic, first page, you get a previously box, catches you right up. I had read the first part of this story, The Curse of Ra Moon, and it's an interesting enough story. The trouble I have sometimes with the Mega Man comics is they are based on, or at least structured like, the video games, where there is a set outcome that they're going for, where you are to go from point A to point B to point C and get this thing or defeat this guy. And sometimes that sets itself to giving you a very uniform pacing in the story. But having said that, keeping those trappings in mind, I had a great time reading this. The basic premise of The Curse of Ra Moon is that Ra Moon is a intensely amazing, overwhelming computer virus who is slowly destroying all electronic devices and is becoming more and more powerful and now affecting biological beings, plants, and things like that, and is controlling a lot of the robot masters, and Mega Man and his team are trying to stop him. And so, as I said, it's paced a lot like a video game. You have Mega Man and his team working their way through this castle underground, trying to find their way to Ra Moon to stop him. To stop it, I guess. And they run into various foes that they have to overcome, not unlike you would in a video game. We do have a great flashback, or rather, a cutaway to Dr. Light and Plant Man back at the labs with Roll, Mega Man's sister, who was injured a few issues ago and is now in a lot of trouble because a lot of the systems that would have helped repair her are being impaired by the Ra Moon virus that's going around. And we get in Dr. Light and Mega Man's conversation, Dr. Light catches Mega Man up on what's going on around the world, and they've used some radio technology to teach other scientists how to create the formula that will help to negate the virus and get things moving again. This is in the form of, we saw a couple issues back, like a liquid coating that they put around Mega Man and the other robot masters to allow them to function with this virus. So I guess we wrap up the issue with all of the robot masters who have been controlled by Ra Moon showing up. These are all folks who are robots that are loyal to Dr. Wily, who has been kidnapped by Ra Moon, and they all decide to work together with Mega Man. The enemy of my enemy is a phrase that's used here. And they go in and find Dr. Wily. There's a great 2-page spread of them breaking their way into Ra Moon's fortress, where we find that Dr. Wily is alive, and he has created a robot to destroy Ra Moon. But unfortunately, Ra Moon takes over that robot as well, and that's where we're left. At the end of the issue, everybody's together, everybody's ready to defeat their common enemy. And the final issue of this arc, all of these stories have been broken up into 4-issue chunks, 4-issue arcs, is going to be them ultimately overcoming him. So, as I said at the top of the review, this is a familiar pattern. They have something that they need to do, a foe that they need to destroy, and within 4 issues, that's where you get. So, it's a little... it's a little it's a little simple, but it is intended for a young audience. And I think that Ian Flynn's scripts are always terrific and always all ages friendly. And in this issue, the art by Mike Cavallaro is great. He just came onto the book on this arc. He's doing a great job. He's going to be drawing the Shield backups in the Fox, coming up with the second issue. He's a great artist who's coming up. Has done a lot of work in the past, and this is some of his first work for Archie, as far as I know. We got inks by Gary Martin and Bob Smith, and colors by Matt Herms, letters by Jack Morelli. And this team has been consistent throughout the book, has really supplied a real uniformity to the artwork, where even when you have different artists who have their own different styles, there's still a uniformity to the art in the colors. Matt Herm's colors I've talked about endlessly. I think they're fantastic. So excited to get back into this arc after missing that last issue. Excited for the next issue. That is Mega Man number 31. Now on to the final book. This is going to be another tough one, as this is Archie and Friends Double Digest number 33. I'll take a drink of water here. This is a double digest. It's just 300 plus pages. Fantastic stuff in here. Super good stuff. We start out with a great Fernando Ruiz cover. Is of course a double digest, and so we get two of everybody hanging out in Santa's bag. Santa looks a little grumpy here. If you if you look at the cover, you will see he looks a little upset. He says, "Double the stories, double the fun." His expression doesn't necessarily say that to you. Maybe I'm misreading it, but it looks great. Great cover. It says 320 pages, giant-sized, $5.99 price point on this. Fantastic. And we start out with Not Even a Moose. This is a great Archie Christmas time story written by Frank Doyle, pencils by Bill Vigoda, inks and letters by Terry Svenix, colors by Barry Grossman. This is just so good. You guys, Bill Vigoda, we'll talk about him in a later story. There's a great one he does that I'm going to have to get to. But this is just a simple misunderstanding story. This is Archie dressed as Santa Claus, and Reggie decides to mess with Archie, tells Moose to go after him, and when he gets there, Archie's no longer dressed as Santa. Mr. Weatherby is dressed as Santa. And it just goes on from there. Frank Doyle scripts are just so skillfully put together. They're so brilliant in their simplicity. I really, really enjoyed this one. Also, Last Resort is a great story. It has Reggie and Archie looking for the hot Christmas toy that year. Swinging Santa has Veronica and Betty getting the Archies together to help out a street corner Santa Claus to raise money for the needy at Christmas time. There's Archie on a tightrope, which is ridiculous. There's Archie Past, Present, and Future, which is a fun story, scripted and drawn by Dick Malgrim. Inks by John D'Agostino, and Bill Yoshida and Barry Grossman doing the letters and coloring. And this is a story where Archie decides he doesn't want to do a commercial Christmas. He's not going to buy anybody presents. And then he lays down and takes a nap and has a dream of what Christmas would be like if no one took the time to do things for other people, and comes around and gets the Christmas spirit back. And there's a great panel in here. One of the things I love about Archie comics is sometimes the incidental characters, where in a panel you'll put the main character of the story in the background, and then in the foreground will be just an incidental passerby or someone. And there's a dude in a big pink car. He's wearing a blue jacket and a blue hat and has a gigantic dog that's taking up the entire rest of the car. I keep meaning to make some kind of blog post with all of my favorite incidental characters, some panels like that. And getting on to more Bill Vigoda greatness, we have Captain Pureheart. We get a whole bunch of super teen stories in here. We get a couple big long ones, again, written by Frank Doyle. And Bill Vigoda turns in some, 60s Marvel-looking stuff in here. And, of course, these stories did come out of the 60s. Makes a little bit of sense. But he's got a panel of this villain that's some straight-up Jack Kirby stuff. Just fantastic stuff. I love the super teen stuff. It's a great mix of superhero action and comedy. A super, super lot of fun. We also get the incredible Bulk, which is Dilton becoming a big purple monster from a lab accident. And we wrap up the issue hundreds of pages later, and only $5.99 lighter, with a couple of really fun new Archie stories written by Mike Pawlowski with Henry Scarpelli art. These are Christmas time new Archie stories based on the 80s cartoon. Cool stuff. So there you have it, the week's books in review. Of course, the book of the week, Jughead, Double Digest number 197, Afterlife with Archie number 2, Mega Man number 31, and Archie and Friends, Double Digest number 33. All right, in Archie news this week, late last week, just after I recorded last week's show, story came out on Comic Book Resources as a brief interview with Bob Bowling. Super cool. This came out in conjunction with the Little Archie digital exclusive that we talked about last week that has that great old Bob Bowling story and art. And this is a pretty quick, succinct interview, but the interviewer seemed very versed in Bob's work, certainly more so than myself. So that was a really, really fun read. Also last week, or earlier this week, on denofgeek.com and also over at Comic Book Resources. Between the two of them, they premiered all 5 of the variant covers for the Fox number 5. These variants will be provided by, of course, the classic cover, the original cover, the first cover is going to be done by Dean Haspiel, the series writer and artist. And then we have 4 variants in addition to that. One by Howard Chaykin, which is amazing. One by Mike Norton, awesome. One by Mike Cavallero, who we just talked about doing the art on Mega Man. And the 5th cover is by Alex Toth, who worked on the Fox character back in the 80s during that Red Circle relaunch. So that's an exciting piece of news for sure. Also, this week just came out yesterday, the news that Afterlife with Archie number 2 has sold out. I mentioned that in the first part of the show. This came out as a press release from Archie. Afterlife with Archie number 2 has sold out. Now, I don't know if that's a larger print run than the first issue, but even if it isn't, for a book to have that sort of consistency is uncommon in the world of comics. Generally, if a book has a huge first issue, they'll see a pretty big drop-off for the second issue, and then a significant drop-off for the third, and on and on and on, which is why the comics industry as a whole produces so many number 1 issues. That's a whole other story altogether, but cool nonetheless. Afterlife with Archie number 2 has sold out. Finally this week, we got a fun article over at Variety entitled "Why Comic Book Kid Archie Needs to Get Bloody." And this is a conversation that is worth having, I think. And it's a cool, again, fairly short but really in-depth article talking about whether Archie needs to have a book aimed at adults and why Archie has a book aimed at adults. And as someone like myself who is having these sort of weird, complicated feelings about Afterlife with Archie and its existence and what it means and, overthinking the whole thing, this is cool. They talked to John Goldwater. They talked to Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa. They talked to Francesco Francavilla. They talked to Paul Kupperberg. And, it's a good... I guess I would view it as sort of a conversation. They sort of look at both sides. But that's a great article over at Variety. So that is the news of the week. CBR has that great interview with Bob Bowling. CBR and Den of Geek have brought us the covers for the Fox number 5. Afterlife with Archie number 2 has sold out, and Variety is talking about Afterlife with Archie. Head over to RiverdalePodcast.com. There you're going to find the links to all these stories. You'll definitely want to check them out. All right, new releases for this past Wednesday, November the 20th. Should be no surprise at this point. Of course, Afterlife with Archie number 2 for $2.99. Archie and Friends Double Digest for $5.99. Jughead Double Digest number 197 for $3.99. And Mega Man number 31 for $2.99. Coming up next Wednesday, November the 27th, we're going to get Betty and Veronica Double Digest number 218 for $3.99. And the Fox number 1 second printing, not the second issue, but the second printing of the first issue, if you missed that. It's going to be out next week for $2.99. Also, big week for Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic Super Digest number 5 for $3.99. Sonic Super Special Magazine number 9 for $9.99. And Sonic Universe number 58 for $2.99. Also next week, Sonic Universe Volume 6 for $11.99. That collects Sonic Universe numbers 21 through 24. Over on the digital side of things, on the Digital Comics app, or over at digital.archiecomics.com, you'll get Jughead All You Can Eat. It's a 100-page digital exclusive for $3.99. Also, Life with Archie number 33 is up on the digital apps everywhere. Digital.archiecomics.com, Comixology, all those. That's gone up, and we're not expecting it for, I guess, a couple weeks now in print. So if you can't wait to read it, get over to the digital stores and pick that one up. So those are your new releases for this past Wednesday the 20th, this coming Wednesday the 27th, and your digital releases of the week from Archie Comics. Finally today, I got a note from Jeremy Lamastis, who we talked about last week. He sent in a note about his fan art, his DeviantArt page. And I guess before we get into this, I want to let everybody know that if you're blogging or doing fan art, doing any kind of fan stuff, if you have a Tumblr about Archie Comics, let me know. Send me a note, and we'll talk about it on the show. We'll get some more eyes on your stuff. In any event, Jeremy wrote in and says, reading today's Afterlife with Archie reminded me of something I meant to write you about. I was curious about the Madhouse horror issue you reviewed. I remembered the sorcery horror title and thought it was from around the same time. I checked, and it did end about the same time that those issues were produced. I suspect that they just stuck those stories in there since they had them done. Just my theory. I thought you might be interested. And yes, I am interested. I was actually completely unaware of the sorcery title, Chilling Adventures in Sorcery, as it's called. This ran for 5 issues between 1972 and 1974, it seems like. And the Madhouse issue that Jeremy referred to, I reviewed last month, maybe the second week of October, and that's Madhouse number 96. This was kind of a notable issue because Madhouse, for issues 95, 96, and 97, diverted pretty sharply from its regular stories, the comedic, oddball, off-kilter stories about the Madhouse Glads and those folks. Really shifted courses really strongly for 3 issues, and then shifted back again to the stories it was doing classically. And as Jeremy pointed out, that happens just about the time that this series, Chilling Adventures in Sorcery, ended in 1974. So I do think that you're onto something. It does, again, seem odd that they would put it in the Madhouse title, and maybe we'll never know why that happened. But that does seem really likely. It is the same creative teams working on Chilling Adventures in Sorcery that did the stories that ended up in those 3 issues of Madhouse. So, cool, interesting piece of history, and certainly an interesting piece of Archie history. It's always fun to look back at little oddities like that in the history of publishing. So, thanks for bringing that up, Jeremy. Cool. We'll have to track down some of those Chilling Adventures in Sorcery issues and see what's going on with them. There are a lot of great ways for you to help out the show. I can't stress enough that listening to the show every week, writing in with your thoughts and ideas, and supporting the show in that way is, number one, super important, and I appreciate that. If you would like to help out the show financially, there's a way for you to do that. Head over to RiverdalePodcast.com and click that link for TFA, Things from Another World. Things from Another World is a giant online comic shop. Amazing deals there. You can do your pre-orders. You can get graphic novels, statues, toys, all the stuff you could get from your comic shop. You can get from Things from Another World at great prices. Going on right now is the Dark Knights of November progressive sale. This is progressive in that they have a huge selection of graphic novels and a huge selection of comics and nick and dent items. Those are items with slight flaws and defects to them that they mark down to incredibly low prices. So head over there and check that out. Currently, as of yesterday, the 22nd, all of these books on sale it's 50% off collected graphic novels and 70% off comics and nick and dent items. And coming up this coming Friday, the 29th, Black Friday, that will be dropped further to 60% off graphic novels and 80% off select comics and nick and dent items. You want to get in there and check this out. There's good stuff in there. There's Archie Archives, those great Dark Horse hardcovers. There's some IDW stuff. There's countless digests, double digests, single issues. Great Archie stuff there. And great stuff beyond Archie. Any comics you're really looking for, you're going to find at Things from Another World. And check out that progressive sale for amazing discounts on that stuff. So again, head over to RiverdalePodcast.com, click that link for Things from Another World, and anything you buy there after clicking that link on our site, a percentage of what you spend will go back to us to support the show. So thanks for considering that, and go check out those great deals. On the way out today, I want to remind everybody to head over to RiverdalePodcast.com. There you're going to find the cover to our book of the week, Jughead Double Digest number 197. You'll also find links to all of the news stories, all of the stuff we talked about in the news section. You'll find a link there to send us an email at riverdalePodcast@yahoo.com. You'll find a link to follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. You'll find a link to subscribe on iTunes, have new episodes delivered to you every week. And if you're listening on iTunes, head over to iTunes and write a review. That's a great way to help people find the show. Also, you can listen to us on Stitcher through the Stitcher mobile app. Head over to Stitcher.com and get that app. Head over to the Archie forums at archiefans.com. Lots of great conversation going on over there. So that's going to do it for this week. Thanks for hanging out for this extra long episode. Thanks again to Betty Reggie over at the Archie Fans forum for the suggestion for this show, the marathon episode. I hope you guys liked it. Send me a message. Let me know what you thought of the extra long format. Maybe we could do this every so often. It was a crazy amount of work, and it was. But that's going to do it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. I want to wish a very happy Thanksgiving to all of you listeners here in America. Thanks for listening. Again, my name is Jonathan, and I'll see you again next week here in lovely Riverdale, USA.